do a lot
All
of this.
right.
Okay, if we can
Yeah.
jump forward,
Yeah.
because we've talked about this case study, we've come full circle, and we have 7 more minutes before you guys have to start. Right?
Keep going.
Okay,
You can
so
a little more.
let's flip down and go to the next. Okay, let's take a look at this one. I'll show you the photos of the damage because you want to see it. But this one took another twist, okay? Because a lot of times we get tunnel vision when we look at these accident reconstructions where I want to calculate impact speed. Sometimes impact speed really isn't the most important thing. Let's take a look at this one for a minute. Here is a case that settled several years back. This is the Lakeville Highway up in Sonoma. For those of you who go to the races in Finian's right over here, okay? So you know where this is. And this is late at night. Vehicles traveling southbound. Where is it? Right here. Behind this little video, there's the word Ford. This vehicle right here is a Ford, and it's traveling southbound on the Lakeville Highway. At some point, for some reason, the left side of this Ford encroaches into the oncoming lane. And then, of course, it caused a sideswipe type contact with this vehicle here, which was a little Chevy Aveo. So who won? Well, let's take a look and see. After that, the Chevy Aveo, because of the eccentric force applied to the left side of the Aveo, okay? Imagine you're in the Aveo like this, and you've got a force applied on the left side of your vehicle. What type of rotation might that cause on the Aveo? Maybe counterclockwise, right? Because the force is being applied eccentric to its center of mass. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. That counterclockwise rotation caused that Aveo to go into, can you go back to the last slide for just a second? Caused that Aveo to go into the oncoming lane and then hit near head-on a Honda Passport. This little Aveo got beaten up pretty badly. So let's take a look at the first overlap. This is the overlap contact between the southbound Ford and the northbound Chevy Aveo. Just minor overlap, okay? But enough overlap to change the direction of the little Aveo so that it went into the oncoming lane. Let's take a look at its damage, Professor. Okay. Here's our Aveo. The entire left side of the engine compartment is compromised. We've got damage, well, super saturated. We've got damage that goes into what should be the reinforced passenger section. The A-pillar, as we refer to it, is almost vertical. When you see that, that's a lot of damage into the passenger compartment. Here's the side swipe damage to the Ford. Not too bad. Its left front tire was torn off and then it hobbled over to the side of the road where it died, right? And here's our Passport after it was struck nearly head-on by the Aveo. Next slide, Professor. So the first step here was to, as an engineer, I got all over this damage, I took the measurements, and I want to align the vehicles. This is what we refer to as indexing the vehicles with each other. This is the Aveo versus the Passport collision. And what I did was I measured the damage, basically profile to the Aveo, and then I measured the damage profile to the Passport. In this case, after taking the measurements, it became apparent it was largely just triangular in shape. And then I overlapped the two vehicles with each other, and I found the stiffness coefficients for each of them. And then I calculated the total damage energy. Next slide, Professor. And same thing here. I used my spreadsheet, which you can easily design using all the equations that you derived in this class. And I made sure that the two forces on acting on both vehicles are the same. And then after doing that, I'm able to calculate on the next slide the total closing velocity for that collision. The closing velocity is the sum of their two velocities, almost, right? It's a pretty high-speed impact. Needless to say, both operators of these vehicles were severely hurt. Nobody died. Nobody died in either of these vehicles. It's a miracle, given the closing velocity is in excess of 100 miles an hour. Next slide. All right, so this is interesting now. We've calculated the speeds. We know none of the vehicles were really traveling too fast, but why or how, as Lynn Fricke said, how did this collision occur? Why did the driver of the Ford go into the oncoming lane? Maybe he wasn't paying attention. Maybe he was DUI.
It's an old road, though, right?
This is what the roadway looked like on the night of the collision.
It's bigger than one.
How much positive guidance is there for you to keep your vehicle in your lane? It turns out that this roadway, 2 weeks prior to the collision, was resurfaced, repaved. And the contractor responsible for getting the striping out on the road was a little tardy. In the case of our accident, just a tiny bit too tardy. Because had they finished their work, this is what the roadway would have looked like. So you see the difference in the positive guidance for the motorists using this roadway? They look starkly different, don't they? In this particular case, it turned out that it wasn't an issue of speed, it was an issue of positive guidance on the roadway to enable that motorist to keep his vehicle on the proper side of the road without encroaching into the oncoming way. Yes, sir.
Did they have the lights on? Was it at nighttime?
It wasn't nighttime. The headlights are on in both of these videos. These videos were taken by high-resolution red cameras that have really good night visibility. They're very capable of taking video at night. The red cameras are.
The van or whatever goes to the opposite. I mean, I get it.
Well, it was before even into the oncoming one.
Yeah, I get it. You can't see when you see the lights coming on.
Yeah.
Not every day, that's why. And when you see lights coming on, you move over to make sure you're good.
It's interesting. It's interesting to say that because that, in fact, was one of the arguments made by the operator of the Aveo, their attorneys, that, well, you should have been able to see the oncoming headlights. Why didn't you move over? How many of you have driven on a country road at night with oncoming headlights and tried to figure out just where you are in the roadway without any striping at all? It can be complicated.
It is, but you still do it.
You know, the question is, how far over to the right do you go?
Pretty much almost go, like I come over.
To avoid the headlights, right?
To avoid the headlights, and so what's that, I'm not going off into the ditch.
Well, let's add one more factor here, okay? Let's go back a few slides. Oh. Take a look at this here. Go back one more. Actually, two more probably. Two more. There we go. Look at this here. The operator of the southbound Ford has just traversed a right horizontal curve prior to the collision. And it's at that point in time where the road keeps curving to the right, but the operator of the Ford goes a little straight. Because there's not enough striping on the roadway to keep that motorist centered in the lane. And then when the oncoming headlights come, yeah, I'm sure at the last minute he says, I've got to move over. But by then, at a closing speed of 100 miles an hour, it's over, okay? So the combination of the curve leading up to the location and the lack of positive guidance on the roadway became the key factors in this case, and became the key factors which caused these people to settle for tens of millions of dollars in this case because of the contractor's failure to go out and put the striping on the roadway when they were supposed to. They were actually part of that contract, okay? So it's a coincidence that this collision occurred when it did, but when you look at the roadway, you can see how a motorist might say, well, where am I supposed to be centered on this roadway, having gone through this curve, okay? I don't know if we have enough time to start another example, but I want to flip to a couple of more slides. Can we keep going? I just want to leave you guys with a couple of things. We ran a little bit out of time.
We could have another 5 minutes, okay, if that's.
Okay, we'll keep flipping. I'll just describe this one fairly quickly without going through any math. You recognize this? You don't like to see this in your rear view mirror, right? Actually, if you saw this one, you'd say, that's no problem, right? He's not going anywhere. Well, this officer was traveling or responding to a call. He had an Explorer with him, and he was going code 3, light, siren, the whole shebang, right? Then he got on the radio, and he's responding to a call, and he's got his lights and siren on, and he testifies, I never exceeded 80 miles an hour, okay? He was responding to a potential fist fight at DMV, okay? But he was going 80 miles an hour by testimony. Later, we got a hold of the event data recorder, next slide, and we started looking at the data and looking at the speeds that were reported by it. Which one here? We get black, right? Triangle for vehicle speed. Let's see. Okay, this is the impact, and because of the way Ford does it, you have to look at this on an endless loop, right? So here's the speed of the vehicle all the way up and just prior to the collision. So what do we see there? About 110. Next slide, sir. So let's see. Okay, look at this. 104 miles an hour. Okay? It turns out that just about the time where this officer had reached this 104 miles an hour, which is not allowed even by their policy, much less by the California Vehicle Code, there happened to be a motorist entering the freeway. And the motorist entering the freeway was behind a slower moving vehicle, so then moved over into the fast lane to get around the slower moving. And so the police car and the motorcycle tried to occupy the same place at the same point in time. The officer driving the car did the right thing, jerked the steering wheel to the left to save the motorcyclist's life. He did that, never hit the motorcyclist. Went off onto the soft pan. Now we've got the left tires of the car on the dirt, the right tires on the asphalt. Well, what's going to happen? We're going to have controllability issues, aren't we? Okay, we've got low coefficient of friction or drag factor, high coefficient of friction on the right. Then what's he start to do? Brake. So then he brakes. He's got great braking efficiency over here, not so good over here. Traction control's trying to do what it can, right? But what ends up happening with the car? Starts going back to the right, doesn't it? Next slide, sir. We'll be done in just a second. Let's pop on over to the next one. Here's what happens. He goes off. Traction control tries to do its thing. He's braking hard, goes all the way over to the center median, hits a pickup truck, turns the pickup truck upside down. The dog dies, and the driver of the car is scarred. As a result, she lives, thankfully. We go all the way to court. We point out the inconsistencies with the officer's testimony and all that, and the jury found in favor for the driver of the pickup. Clearly, it wasn't her fault. Wrong place, wrong time. The officer did a good job avoiding a collision with the motorcycle, but should have been traveling 104 miles an hour. This is true for our vehicles too. For those of you who leave, if you've got reasonably new vehicle, and that could be 2001 or newer these days, you have an event data recorder, you're involved in a crash, you know that data may be there. Okay? The officer, I think he knew it, but I'm not sure what happened there, in terms of his testimony. Next slide. So a couple of the other things we do, we're asked to look at filament. Have you done this? You've looked at filament. Okay, what happens to metal when it's really, really hot? It becomes ductile, right? And tends to stretch. Then it's involved in a collision, and the mass of the coils itself might stretch the metal. And that's what we see here as ductile deformation. So oftentimes we'll look at filament in a headlamp to determine whether it was on or off. Is that an issue? Yeah, because at night you're supposed to have your headlights on, right? And that's to enable not just for you to see, but other cars to see you. Next one. Another thing we look at a lot of times are seatbelt usage. Now in the event data recorders, it tells us whether you're seatbelted or not, right? But in the old days, we would look at the seatbelts themselves. This plastic D-ring. Look at how the seatbelt's been pulled through here. Really hard, really fast, with a lot of weight, okay? And look at the characteristics of the seatbelt here. Remember, it's webbing, so when it's pulled really, really hard, the outsides tend to tighten up, and the insides, that stress is distributed across the inside of the belt. But on the outside, it gets stretched more than it does on the inside, so you get this characteristic to it. Next one. The event data recorder, you've probably seen this. If you don't know what the event data recorder looks like, it's a silver box here with the angle, with the arrow on it telling the mechanics how to install it in the car, which way goes front. Next one, sir. We use, in this class, you've used a few different models, computer models to simulate collisions. Commercially available software includes Engineering Dynamics, SMAC and Crash Program. We use that in our office to reconstruct collisions. And then next slide. I'm getting scanners and total stations. Goes without saying. I'm trying to get to another slide that I want to show you before you run out. Okay, some of the essential skills. Math, right? We're all very smart. We can all do calculations. But you also have to use some other skills. Photography skills, very important in this business. What's the difference in these two collisions or two photos? How I've taken the photograph here with just a regular ordinary camera, but over here I've used oblique lighting to reveal what? What's this look like to you guys? Look at your blue jeans. You see this pattern on your blue jeans? If not, you've got the wrong blue jeans. This is a blue jean imprint from a pedestrian that was struck by this vehicle. And if you take the photograph on the left, which is the type of photograph you typically get from an insurance adjuster or what have you, you would never be able to tell. Now, I just take my flashlight, and instead of using the flash on the camera, I take the flashlight, shine it across the bumper of the car obliquely, and all of a sudden, the pattern of the blue jeans pops out. Now you can photograph it, figure out what part of that vehicle is the pedestrian. Pretty cool. Photography skills are very important. Next slide. Okay, here's what you don't want to hear. Technical communication skills. Extremely important in this business. I write countless reports explaining my opinions, and then I have to go and testify. That's me when I have him. Okay? I have to go and testify to what my opinions are. You're all very smart, but don't forget that somehow you have to communicate that smartness to other people. A lot of times they're jurors that don't have engineering degrees. In fact, they don't know what conservation momentum is. Many of them don't care, okay? But you have to explain it to them. Technical communication skills are paramount, not just in my business, I'm sure, but in all engineering businesses. But more so here, because you have to explain this, what you did, the fidelity of your data, the fidelity of your analysis to lay people. Paramount skill to have. So if you have an opportunity to take a technical communications course, like research methodology or whatever it is at the undergraduate level, do so. It's very important. Next. And then these are photos of crash testing we've done. Last time we slid some motorcycles to determine the sliding coefficient for motorcycles. Next one. This is that research I was telling you about where we propelled cars underneath the side of a semi-trailer. Basically, I took my big old pick-em-up truck, attached the cable to it, and pulled the car through a pulley, pulled it underneath the side of the trailer, and when the collision occurred, then we went out and documented how far underneath the vehicle it went, how much volume of the van was crushed. It's a lot of fun, okay? Yeah, and then it gives you an opportunity to participate in full-scale crash testing, validate existing math models, and come up with new ones. That's what the goal of this paper was. Next. And then we'll skip all of this. These are other forensic engineering endeavors like bridge collapses, walkway collapses, explosions. I went to Puerto Rico back in 1996 where this building exploded. It was a shoe store, killed 32 people because there was a gas leak that seeped into the basement, and it was natural gas, so it took a little while to reach the explosive limit. And then when the owner came in and ignited the heater, the whole thing went off. And I spent 2 weeks looking at concrete samples trying to figure out how it exploded in Puerto Rico. Right-of-way violation, I got to stand out on the tarmac at San Francisco, SFO, to determine why a 747 and a fuel truck collided. Seems pretty simple, right? Who has the right-of-way on a runway? The airplane, right? Okay, why do we care? Why did we reconstruct this? Because that engine, $5 million, just for that motor itself on that jet. So it was a big deal who had the right-of-way. Next. And then, of course, because I was a police officer, I do a lot of crime scene investigation and reconstruction. This is a shooting, obviously, and these are dowels used to predict the path of the bullet. Then we'll take a 3D scanner in there and scan the bullet paths, and we can figure out where the shooter was standing, how many shots were fired, caliber of the weapon, where the victim was hit. Next, the end. This is the superstructure, by the way, 20 minutes after it collapsed back in 1989. I was a police officer. I stood on part of the superstructure. This is looking north, and it looks like kind of like the ocean. All of those sections between the beams collapsed. And of course, in some cases, there were vehicles underneath. All right, anyway, thank you very much. If you have questions, I'll hang out. If not, have a great day.